A few days ago, Gavin Newsom bragged on X that robberies in California are down 31%. Spencer Pratt had the perfect and 100% truthful response. It's easy to say robberies are down when you just make robbery legal. Evidence is finally starting to surface to support what many of us have suspected for a long time. Blue cities are manipulating crime statistics in many ways to make their cities look good, and it's the innocent people who are paying the price. As the wife of a cop, I've been following crime statistics for a long time. I've seen the manipulation of them by city managers and council members. I've watched judges severely reduce and dismiss charges altogether for violent and repeat offenders. And I've had to sit back and watch as they handcuffed our officers, preventing them from actually enforcing the law. They have purposely manipulated, hid, and outright ignored real crime while promoting false crimes to force a narrative, and skewed official reports to not only hide the truth about how much crime is occurring, but who is actually committing it. It's time this stops, and I'm going to start by focusing a spotlight directly on it. So here's my 2 cents on cities are manipulating crime stats to push false narratives. Last week, Anna Garatelli released her book Under Assault. An experienced Homeland Security reporter for the Washington Examiner, a personal experience led Anna to investigate crime and how it is reported to the public. Her conclusion confirms what many of us already know. The numbers are being systematically manipulated. Blaze Media reported, Garatelli experienced this firsthand when moving to Washington, D.C. Carefully examining official data was a priority during the neighborhood search. I looked at the crime stats before I moved to Capitol Hill and selected my home there based on blocks on Capitol Hill that were the safest and showed the least amount of crime incidents. What she didn't know was that the Metropolitan Police Department's crime map didn't show the whole picture. It only displayed first-degree and select second-degree felonies. Most felonies and misdemeanors were entirely absent. In other words, the map only flagged major headline-grabbing crimes like homicides or armed robberies. It completely skipped over everyday break-ins, property theft, and assaults. Whether it's a resident or a business owner, people base their decisions on where to move on that crime map. And not to include all crimes shows an inaccurate picture of the state of public safety in D.C. I would not have moved to this block had I known the real extent of crime in the area. I'd argue Washington, D.C. officials are liable for misleading the public, particularly victims like myself, who they knowingly deceive. Anna's book is supported by evidence that has already been reported on, exposing the manipulation and distortion of Washington, D.C.'s crime stats. But it's not just D.C. A good portion of our larger and bluer cities are guilty of this practice as well. They reclassify certain crimes to lower-level violations and remove them from the database. Likewise, they put a higher threshold on what is reported. For example, California passed Proposition 47, which determined shoplifting up to $950 would be a misdemeanor, resulting in such thefts not be prosecuted seriously or reported in crime stats. Countless videos populate social media of people stealing items and just walking out of stores in California with no efforts to stop or arrest them. So the tweet from Spencer Pratt is not just a dig on Newsom. It is a revelation and reality for all to see, finally calling out those blue cities for what they are doing, claiming a decrease in crime by flat out not prosecuting or reporting it. In April 2020, Garatelli was walking to the post office just blocks from the U.S. Capitol when she was physically and sexually assaulted on a public sidewalk in broad daylight. Her attacker was eventually caught and sent to federal prison. Later, while working on a routine newsroom assignment evaluating D.C. crime trends, she decided to look up her own incident on the city's official crime map. There was no mark, no pin, nothing. When I contacted DC police to inquire about my specific assault, I was told it did not meet the threshold to be counted by DC police on the crime map. Let that sink in. Sexual assault does not meet the threshold to be counted on the crime map. So much for these liberal strongholds actually protecting women. But there are other ways of distorting data. I've been following this next phenomenon for a while, and it's a huge problem. A study was done on the reporting of homicide suspects by race. The media consistently and aggressively reports the race if the suspect is white and buries their race if they are black. Last December, a man in Sioux Falls was arrested. This is the picture published with the article. Here is a picture of the actual suspect that was arrested. The media claims they use stock photos sometimes when an actual photo is not available, but what does the photo they use unconsciously convey to the reader? Especially when publications like The Guardian, New York Times, and The Atlantic all produce articles claiming a rise in white supremacists and far right-wing violence. It's almost like it's a coordinated narrative. Regardless, let's give the media the benefit of the doubt regarding the stock photo. That being said, how do you explain this? This man murdered 2 motel owners. He is listed as a white homicide suspect. He's sporting a pretty dark tan for a white guy, don't you think? This white man who drugged, kidnapped, and sexually assaulted a child in North Carolina is actually an illegal immigrant. What's worse, when ICE agents came to take this horrible person into custody, Charlotte, North Carolina officials refused to hand him over. Matt Von Swall did a deeper dive into this and discovered suspects were getting mislabeled at an alarming rate. But he noticed it was always Hispanic or black to white, never white or black to Hispanic. In many cases, he found them identified correctly at first, only to have their race changed to white. Others started digging too and found even more evidence of this. Robbie Starbuck tweeted, "Someone went through the entire Texas sex offender registry and found that the government data was insanely wrong. In government data, it says 40% of offenders are white, but after removing all blacks and Hispanics listed as white, it drops to 28%. Someone responded by stating, "My Megan's Law registry here in New York marks every Hispanic as white. This is a relatively new thing, and it's infuriating." I could fill an hour with pictures of Hispanic or black suspects being listed as white, but you can do that research on your own if you want more proof. I have no doubt this is all done on purpose to drive the narrative they want, with the media managing the engine. Our leaders and lawmakers are hiding and lying about the crime in their cities and states for their own benefit, with the media reporting the false statistics without a thought of investigating for themselves. They're all protecting the ones they truly care about, and it's not the American people. The calls to abolish ICE are not because ICE is doing anything wrong. It's because ICE is actually going after the true criminals, the ones these blue cities don't want you to know about. As evidence is flooding in regarding fraud by Somalian refugees, a Minnesota lawmaker wants to focus on white men fraud. Well, if they want to talk about corrupt white men, Tim Walz should be at the top of that list, as he knew all of it was happening and didn't arrest a soul. In fact, Walz just pardoned an illegal who sexually assaulted a 10-year-old girl. The man lost his legal status after pleading guilty and was set to be deported when Walz pardoned him to keep him in the country. Fortunately, Marco Rubio stepped in, revoked his legal status, and deported him. Why do all these blue leaders care more about illegal sex offenders than their own citizens? After Laken Riley's attack and death in 2024 by an illegal, the local mayor was more concerned about not connecting illegals to crime than he was about the senseless and brutal assault and unaliving of an American citizen. I caution against conflating immigration and crime, the data demonstrates that the two are not connected. Only because you're making it that way. But as Paul Sperry points out, sanctuary cities and DOJ FBI suppress the connection between immigration and crime by categorizing Hispanic crime as white crime. More often than not, Hispanic suspects are booked as race white, and DOJ does not correct the data in their crime reports, distorting by race tables. When the media does decide to report on crime, especially violent crime, it is often twisted, manipulated, and interjected with racism wherever they can through lies, deception, and innuendo. Case in point. Over the July 4th weekend, 18-year-old Nolan Wells disappeared after he and some friends traveled to Horn Island, just off the coast of Mississippi. While the investigation continues, CNN already reported what they claim many believe happened. The young man's death has stoked speculation and distrust in part due to Mississippi's fraught racial history and the fact that Wells appeared to be the only person of color in an image with friends on the trip. Except it is appearing there were other Black friends on the trip as well, but they're not telling you that, are they? So who, CNN? Who is stoking this speculation? I'll give you one who. Al Sharpton. You know, the same guy who interjected himself into the Duke University lacrosse case in March of 2006, which involved a Black exotic dancer named Crystal Magnum, claiming 3 white lacrosse players R-ed her after she performed at a party. DA Mike Nifong arrested the players for first-degree R, sexual assault, and kidnapping. Al Sharpton was a leading voice in accusing the players of racism along with the other charges, destroying their college careers as well as their lives after college, including having to endure death threats. Despite evidence, including DNA results, falling apart for the prosecution, the New York Times published a piece in August to keep the narrative going. It was debunked almost immediately. As reported by Slate, the Times still seems bent on advancing its race, sex, class ideological agenda, even at the cost of ruining the lives of 3 young men who it has reason to know are very probably innocent. This at a time when many other true believers in the rape charge, such as the feminist law professor Susan Estridge, have at last seen through the prosecution's fog of lies and distortions. The piece cultivates a meretricious appearance of balance, but its flaws are so glaring that it was shredded by bloggers within hours after it hit my doorstep. After Crystal stated in December she had doubts about her story, Nifong dropped the R charges. 6 days later, ethic charges were filed against him. He was soon disbarred for his unethical, manipulative, and deceitful behavior in the case, and 2 months later he served a day in jail for knowingly making false statements to the court during the criminal proceedings. The new DA dropped all remaining charges against the players in 2007, but the damages were already done. Sergeant Mark Gottlieb, a lead investigator in the case with a history of targeting Duke students, eventually left the department and several years later committed suicide. In 2013, Sharpton denied being involved in the Duke case, yet even Whoopi Goldberg called him out on interjecting himself into the situation and suggested he apologize to the lacrosse players. You would think CNN would learn not to jump into racial conclusions after reporting in 2024 that Crystal confessed in an interview while serving a 14 to 18-year sentence for killing her boyfriend that she lied about the whole Duke University case. Yet here we are, watching Sharpton do the same thing to Nolan Wells' friends while CNN happily goes along with the narrative. Let's see if the DA and the investigators play along this time. Regardless, if a DA and a detective are willing to prosecute innocent people just to push a narrative, and a major newspaper eagerly continues that narrative regardless of obvious contradicting facts, what makes you think they are telling you the truth about any of it? Do you really think violence is plummeting in blue cities because they made the cities safer? Why is the left only concerned about white supremacy and far right-wing violence on the rise and it being terrorism but deny Antifa, a known anti-capitalist group that aligns itself with the left, even exists. Are illegals really completely innocent and not committing crimes while being unlawfully targeted by ICE agents? Or are there some math tricks occurring there too? Remember the evidence I presented earlier regarding labeling Hispanics as white? Nolan Wells and Duke students are specific cases, but the left's race baiting goes even further. Reports are constantly published about the high number of Black people who are shot or homicided while hiding that the suspects are primarily Black themselves, just like the primary suspects in white homicides are whites. Instead, they insinuate few suspects with Black victims are ever arrested because the victims are Black, again leaving out the suspects are usually Black themselves, trying to lead the reader or listener to conclude they are white and are never held accountable. The truth is, when it comes to actually reporting on Black crime, suddenly the political microphones and media keyboards are deafeningly silent. Just this past weekend in Chicago, 21 people were shot, with 3 fatalities. This happens every weekend in Chicago. Do you ever really hear about it in mainstream media? Many of the victims of these shootings are innocent bystanders who are unfortunately in the line of fire. Almost all are Black. But where are the Black Lives Matter protesters? Where are the celebrities on X crying about the victims of these crimes? Where are the GoFundMe pages for the young teenage boys who are hit by the stray bullets, or for the women who are struck in the head, or for the little children playing in their yard whose lives are ended when some moron opens fires for who knows what reason? Now, to be fair, the mayor did take action regarding the violence in his city against trans people by declaring a trans femicide state of emergency in Chicago while Black children die in the streets on a weekly basis without a second thought. More Black citizens in Chicago are shot in a single weekend, sometimes 2 or 3 times more than the total number of trans people in Chicago in the last decade plus combined. But if you're trans or part of the alphabet soup group, the mayor wants you to know he will protect you. The rest of you, he'll victimize you all over again by not giving you even the time of day. Unless you happen to be shot by a white person, especially if they're a cop, then he'll be all over it. Shootings like this happen weekly here in Cincinnati too, but not to Chicago's scale. I can tell you with 100% certainty, when the cops show up, no one ever seems to have seen anything. Police rarely, if ever, get help from the community, including the victims' families, regarding the shooter. Instead, they often get yelled at by those who gather around, including accusations that they are the problem, not the 15-year-old gang member with a gun who already has an arrest record, including a gun charge, which was dismissed by a compassionate judge. I am very passionate about this subject, as I have personal knowledge of the lying and manipulating that goes on in certain police departments, as well as the media regarding crime and criminals. But don't take my word for it. There are amazing journalists out there who are doing honest investigative work. Seek them out. We will never be able to fix the problem if we never obtain proper diagnosis, and sometimes that means getting our hands dirty. Dig into it, research it, and decide for yourself what's really going on. But that's just my 2 cents. What do you think? Leave your comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoy my content, please consider supporting my work on Patreon. You can find all my videos and my blog, Liberating Letters, at thefactspaper.com. You can also start your own research on the Facts Paper by exploring the thousands of links to articles I have, including those noted in my videos. Sharing the truth fake news propagandists won't. Investigate and discover the truth for yourself.